This call is now being recorded. Okay, fine. So I will start with today's session. So the topic that is tuples. Okay. So before getting into the study of tuple, I have some questions, some simple questions that you can think and give me the answer. So you have to just find the answer of this question. So this is a topic that we have discussed in our previous. Okay. So the question is, which among the following statements may result in an error? Assume that these statements are executed in the order in which it is written. So you altogether you have statements from A to H. Now you have to just tell which statement among this will end up with an error. Give your answer in the chat, or you can even unmute yourself and give me the answer. Which among the following statements may result in an error? So I have two kinds of answers over here. Many people have stated, I think only 4 people have answered. I want everyone to answer this question. So 4 to 5 people have answered this question. So can anyone explain? Yeah. Can anyone explain why did you say D?
Ma'am?
Why did you say option D is error?
Because the
Yes,
index
starts
from 0. So 0 index value is 5. The first index value is 10. Likewise, if it goes, we have only 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 indexes. We don't have fifth
yes, you're
one.
correct. Yeah, okay, fine. So whatever answer that was given by ma'am is correct. So altogether we have 5 elements in your list. So how many elements are there in your list? You have 5 elements in your list. Okay. So the indexing starts from 0. So we have the indexing from 0 to 4. So we don't have an index called as 5. So in this print statement, we are trying to say that print list of 5. So this will end up with an saw that some people have said that this particular statement is wrong. You will feel it is wrong, but it is actually correct, because when you are trying to, what you are actually doing is given an. Okay, so the statement D is wrong over here. Fine. So if you could understand, and if it was possible for you to answer this particular question, then obviously it means that you have understood stuffs related to the previous session. So I have another question too. So what is the output of this following code snippet? Just give me the answer. Just go through this snippet, take some time, go through this snippet. You have an explanation for the first line. There is an explanation for the first line of this code. So you can go through and you can answer what will be printed for this code snippet. Think and answer. You can take your time and you can answer. It will be fine if everyone tries it out, so that you can evaluate yourself that where you actually stand with the understandability of what we learned in the previous class. So I want, or I actually insist everyone to try and give an answer. So Nandini ma'am has given me an answer 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So Arimori has given me an answer 0, 10, 20, 30. Okay. So any I want answers, more answers. I want more answers. Think and give me. Yes, shall I wait for another 1 minute to get answers from you? So I got only two answers, one from Nandini, another one is from Arulmuri. So I want other people also to answer this question. Just take a try. Just you can make a try and give an answer. So I will ask you some questions. Just give me the answers for that at least. Okay. So in your first line, you're trying to create a list. Okay, which is being given a name my list. So my list is equal to how many elements are being given in square bracket? Only one element, that is 0. Okay, then you have applied the operator multiplication. A repetition operator is applied over here with respect to 5. So what actually that statement will do? This particular statement, what it will do? You are taking a list and you are multiplying that by 5. So whatever element that is being present in the list will be multiplied 5 times. So what happens to my list? 0 comma 0 comma
5 zeros.
0 comma, yeah, you will have 5 zeros. Okay, you will be having 5 zeros over here. So 4 altogether you will be having 5.
So your first statement will actually do this process. Okay, 0 has been multiplied 5 times. So 5 times the same 0 will be repeated in your list. So this becomes the value for your my list. So now what you're going to do inside your for loop. Okay, so before getting into the body part of the for loop, first tell me how you want to do it. So initially the index value will be, index will take what values? Initially index will take what values? Initially index will be having a value 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. Okay, so we know range, this is your starting point, this means your end, but actually before this 5, what is there? 5 minus 1. Till that only range will take the value. So this particular index, okay, so the sequence that is being given for index will be 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4. So index will first take a value 1, then 2, then 3, and then 4. So now when I get into my for loop, okay, so my list, what is the first value of index? What is the first value of index? First value of index is my list. First value of index is 1. So my list of 1 will be equal to index minus 1. What is the value of index in this stage? 1. So 1 minus 1 becomes
0, 0.
0. So 0 multiplied by anything is going to be 0. So my list of 1 is made of 2 will be equal to what? Will be equal to
2 minus 1 is
2
1, 1
minus
into
1
10, 10.
multiplied by 10.
0,
So
0,
now
10,
this will
1.
give a, this becomes 10. So this happens till 4. So for 3, you will get, when the index value is 3, you will get a value 20. Okay. When the index value is 4, you will get a value 30. So after finishing your for loop, what you're actually doing over here, print my list. So if I try to print my list over here, what will happen? What will be my final result? Index, okay, element at index 0 has not changed. It remains 0. Element at index 1. Again, because of this statement, because of this processing, it will take a value 0. Okay, it will take a value 0. So then element at index 2, element at index index 4 output of this particular problem. So when you try to execute this will be your output 0 comma 0 comma 10 comma 20 comma 30. Okay, so whenever you go through your code, go through it, concentrate and go through it and give the answer. Okay, though it looks simple, some simple twist will be there actually in these kind of codes, so that you have to evaluate that by concentrating more. Okay, so now I will move on with today's topic. It is called as tuple. Okay, so whatever we discussed with respect to the list data structure in our previous class. Okay, so the same stuff we will be discussing in today's class with respect to tuple. So we will come to know what is this tuple data structure. We will learn how to create a tuple, then how indexing takes place with respect to tuple, the different operators with respect to tuple, functions, methods, and finally problem solving. Okay, so tuple, the definition of tuple will be similar to that of your list. Okay, so tuple is also a data structure in Python which is used to store sequence of elements of various types. So the definition of tuple and list are very much similar to each other, but finally I will tell you what is the major difference between tuple and list. Okay, so how do I represent a tuple? How did I represent a list? I used square brackets. So to represent a tuple, I use square brackets. The third point will clearly state what is the biggest difference between tuple and list. Okay, tuple are immutable. Okay, so we know that lists are mutable. When I say lists are mutable, it actually means I can modify the elements that are present within my list. But here tuples are immutable. That means the elements of the tuple, that is, you cannot, for example, if I have a tuple like this, so how do I represent a tuple? In this way. Okay, so how do I represent my tuple? With the help of square brackets. So if my tuple goes in this way, 10 hello. Clear? When I say tuples are immutable, it actually means this 10 cannot be replaced by an this 10 cannot be replaced by another element. This 20 cannot be replaced or modified. This 3.14 cannot be modified. This hello cannot be modified. So you cannot assign a new value to all these elements, and a value cannot be changed. This 10 cannot be changed, 20 cannot be changed, 3.14 cannot be changed, and hello cannot be changed. So we say tuples are immutable. Okay, though tuples look similar to a list, what is the difference between tuple and, if you try to figure out the difference between tuple and list, I can say tuple is actually a read-only collection. Why do I say a read-only collection? Once I create it, I cannot modify it. Okay, more or less I cannot modify it. So we say tuples are immutable. Okay, so next point, the items in the same point that is associated with the list. If I want to put a set of elements into my tuple, I have to separate using commas, and elements of the tuple can be accessed by the process of indexing. And as I said, you can store any type of data into your tuple. So here we use the term homogeneous and heterogeneous. Homogeneous implies all the elements in the tuple belong to same data type. That is, if for example everyone can be, all the elements can be integers, all the elements can be strings, all the elements can be float. Okay, then it means homogeneous. When I say heterogeneous, it means I can have a tuple with a list of elements which belongs to different data types. Okay, so the elements belonging to a tuple can be of different data type, but they are read only. So once it has been created, it cannot be modified. So we say tuple is a data structure which is immutable. Okay, so this is a very simple example. I have stated this example already to show that this is a tuple. And the most important point that you have to remember over here, and you should not forget, is lists are actually mutable, tuples are immutable. Okay, so we will move on with the study of the other stuff. Hope you have a clarity in differentiating list and tuple. So both of them can store either homogeneous or heterogeneous kind of elements inside it, but the major difference between both of them is list are mutable, tuples are immutable. Okay, so next we will move on with the learning of how to create tuples. So how we learned with respect to list. Okay, same kind of methods can be associated, can be related, and we can understand the creation of tuple too. So we know in list we will be using square bracket. So here in tuples we will have to use round bracket. Okay, so we'll directly move on with the teaching part. So now if I want to create a tuple, so T1 is equal to, if I could put two round braces, okay, it actually means that you are creating an empty tuple. So if I type T1, it will end up with the display of an empty tuple. So if I want to put elements into my tuple, so T1 is equal to, if I want to put only integers 10 comma 20 comma 30, so this can be treated as a tuple. Okay, in this, if I now if I type T1, it will print 10 comma 20 comma 30, but it's not necessary. That is, when you create a tuple, there is one point that you have to understand. Tuples can be created without using those round braces. Okay, so T1 is equal to 10 comma 20 comma 30. So now if I type T1, it will say that it is a tuple. So here if you see, I have left off the round braces, okay, open and closed round braces. If you are not using that open and round braces also, Python will interpret that as a tuple. Okay, but it is advisable to put the round braces. That is, if I want to create a tuple, okay, better to enclose the elements within the round braces is advisable. Okay, but if you don't put round braces also, Python will interpret that creation, that data structure creation, to be tuple. Okay, so other than this, I said we can also store various types of data into tuple. For example, this is an string, then you can have an integer, then you can have a float. So this is also acceptable. So if I put T1 hello 10 comma 3.14, so heterogeneous elements are also acceptable with respect to a tuple. So this is one way of tuple creation. So another way is using your tuple built-in function. So how we can use this tuple built-in function? So we can define a built-in function called as tuple. For example, I can say T2 is equal to tuple is a built-in function, so tuple of. So what happens if I type T2 over here? It will put that you have created an empty tuple. Okay, so now I can also use this tuple function, for which I can pass any sequence. Now I am passing a string sequence. So what will be my result in this case? If I put T2, I'm sorry. So if I put T2 over here, H will be taken as one element, E will be taken as the second element, L will be taken as the third, next L will be taken as the fourth element, and O will be taken as the fifth element. Okay, so in the same way, I can give any sequence over here. So for example, if I'm giving T2 is equal to tuple of, I'm passing a list over here. So 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5. Okay, I'm just, so if I put T2, what it has done, I have passed a list. Okay, so 2 comma 3 comma 45 is a list. How do I say it is a list? Because I've enclosed those elements within square brackets. So for this tuple function, I have passed the sequence called as list. So now each and every element of that sequence is taken, and it has been considered as the element of the newly created tuple. So tuple 2 comma 3 comma 45. Okay, so hope this is clear. These are the two ways. Both the ways we did with respect to list, the same is applicable for tuple also. Okay, so this is how you will proceed with the process of creating tuples. Okay, and similarly, after creating a tuple, if you want to access the elements of a tuple, we have to proceed with the process of tuple indexing. So what we learned with respect to the indexing of list, the same is applicable for tuple. So all elements are indexed starting from 0. Similarly, tuple also supports negative indexing. Okay, so the same structure I have shown over here. If you have a list of elements in a tuple, so indexing, positive indexing actually means you will start the indexing from 0. So 0 followed by 1, 2, 3, and 4. Negative indexing actually starts from the last element. So last element will be indexed as -1, and it follows -2, -3, -4, -5. Values will be decremented. So negative indexing, positive indexing, both of them is supported by the tuple. Okay, so the same things we discussed with respect to uh, list, it's applicable here in tuple also. For example, I have created a tuple called as T2, which has 3 elements inside it. Okay, so 2 comma 3 comma 45. So if I want to refer 45, do I refer it? How do I refer it? If I want to refer 45, how do I refer it? I have a question, you can answer. T2 of, what is the index value of 45? You know, what is the index
2.
value of 45? It's very simple. What is the index value of 45? It's 2. That's it. So someone gave me -1. So both are correct. So T2 of -1 or T2 of 2, both gives me the same answer, that is 45. So in the same way, I can access each and every element with this process of indexing. Okay, so hope this is clear. So I will move on. Again, whatever we learned with respect to a list is applicable for tuple also, that is in the case of nested tuple indexing. Okay, so nested tuple indexing implies what? If you have a tuple, okay, so I'm creating a tuple like this. T3 is equal to, I'm creating a tuple which has what? Now give me an answer. Is this a homogeneous tuple or an heterogeneous tuple? I want an answer. Is this an homogeneous tuple? Heterogeneous tuple? How many elements are there in my list? How many elements are there in my list? I want answers. 2 elements are there in my list. Okay, so both the elements are what? Of what type? Both the elements are of what type? Yes, homogeneous. The answer is homogeneous. Why it is homogeneous? Because both the elements belong to the same data type, that is list. Okay, so now inside a tuple, I have nested a list. Okay, so both of them are data structures. So this, if you see, what will be the index of the first list? It will be 0. What is the index of the second list? It will be 1. Again, you have a segregation of elements within a single list. So now the index of 1 will be 0, index of 2 will be 1, index of 3 will be 2. In the same way, index of 4 will be 0, index of 5 will be 1, and index of 6 will be 2. So now if I want to print this element 6, how do I print it? How we learned for list, the same thing is applicable. So I want to print the element 6. So T3 of 1 of 2. Is it clear? So T3 of 1 implies, so 1 is the index of this entire list within the tuple. Okay, and 2 is the index of the element 6 within this list. Okay, is it clear? So the same way, this kind of indexing, nested indexing, is what we discussed with respect to list. The same thing is applicable for tuple also. Okay, so now we will proceed with the other concepts. That is, as I said previously, tuple are immutable. So when I say tuple are immutable, you cannot modify the elements of the tuple. So now if I take, for example, let me take the tuple T2. So T2 has how many elements inside it? 2 comma 3 comma 45. So 2 is an integer value, 3 is an integer value, 45 is an integer value. Okay, so all these values are actually immutable. Hope I am clear. For example, if I want to print 3.14, okay, I'll put it in this way, 3.14, and then I have another element which is a string, that is hello. So these are the elements that I'm pushing inside my tuple. So if I put T4, this is a tuple. So now if you go through the each and every element of this T4, okay, so why am I insisting this point, you can understand later. So what is the first element? It is a 2. The data type of that first element will be an integer. What is 3.24? It is a float value. Okay, that data type, its data type will be float. Hello is actually a string, okay, which is a sequence. Its data type will also be its data type will be string. Okay, so if you consider each and every data type that I've insisted over here, all these data types are also immutable. Okay, they are also immutable. So now we will come to tuple. So we know tuple is a data structure which is immutable. So when I say immutable, it actually means you cannot modify those elements. So now if I try T2 of 0 is equal to 10. So what it is saying in line 1, okay, tuple object does not support item assignment. So what is the meaning of this? Tuple object does not. That is, what is the tuple object? T2 is the tuple object. So this object does not support item assignment. Okay, you cannot assign a new value to the item. So this actually means tuples are immutable. So this error message shows that tuples are immutable. But when I try the same stuff with respect to list, it is acceptable because lists are mutable. Okay, so now there is another question for you. So what is that question? Is consider a tuple like this. Okay, so this tuple is containing homogeneous elements. Okay, those homogeneous elements belong to what data type? List. So what is the thing that I know with respect to list? List are list are list are I'm just asking you to fill in the blanks. Yeah,
Mutable.
list are
List is mutable.
mutable. So the question is, list is mutable. Now the question is it possible for me to modify the value 1 in my first list?
Yes.
This list is having a value called as 1. Yes, it is possible. Okay. So if I do it, I'm just showing you an example over here. It is possible because the list is mutable. Though list is a part of your tuple, okay, clear. You cannot modify the entire list, but you can okay. Am I clear? You cannot modify the entire list, but you can modify an element which is present inside the list. So here I have shown you an example. So initially the list had these elements. So what we are doing in this step, I am trying to change the value of 2 to 8. So what has happened over here? 2 is being changed to tuples are immutable tuple. So now you should not interpret whatever I showed as an example as of now. You should not interpret that as an element of the tuple. Okay, the element of the tuple is that entire list. If I try to change that entire list, things will not be accepted. அதாவது T2 of 0 equal to அப்படின்னு நான் ஒரு புது லிஸ்ட் கொடுத்தேன்னா again it will throw me an error. Tuple object does not support item assignment. But now what I'm trying over here, inside my tuple I have an element. Okay, that element is a sequence which is a mutable sequence. Since it is a mutable sequence, it is possible for me to change the element of that sequence. Clear? It is possible for me to change the element of that sequence. Okay, so this actually doesn't mean you are changing the element of the tuple. Element of the tuple is that entire list. So this is the point I want to emphasize. So based on this, the point that you have to keep in mind or you should not forget over here is mutable elements of a tuple can be modified. Okay, so the point that I'm insisting over here is mutable elements. If a data structure is a mutable, if a particular data structure which is a mutable data structure which is acting as an element of a tuple, then it is possible for you to modify the elements of that list but not the entire list. Is it clear? So the point that you have to keep in mind over here is mutable elements of a tuple, okay, can be modified. Element wise they can be modified. They cannot be changed entirely. Okay, so hope this is clear. Is it clear? Shall I move on?
Ma'am,
Is it clear? Is anyone having doubt over here?
ma'am,
Okay,
today's
fine. So I'll move
nested
on.
tuple or
Yeah.
yesterday's nested list, is it possible to carry out
Yeah.
functions on the lists that are nested? இப்போ இந்த டியூபிள்குள்ள வந்து 1 2 3 2 3 4 இருக்கு இல்லையா? ஸோ இப்போ டு த லிஸ்ட் தட் இஸ் 1 2 3
Yeah.
அதில் நம்ம ஏதாவது அப்பெண்ட் பண்ண முடியுமா? இல்லை கேன் தட் பி செப்பரேட்லி சார்ட்டட்?
You want You're asking me whether it is possible to apply. Yes, they are. What did I say? They are mute. I said they are mutable. That list item is mutable, but entire list is not mutable. Okay. Entire list is acting as this entire list, which is present in the tuple, is acting as the element of this tuple. Okay. If you try to do any kind of modification entirely over that list, it is not possible. But element wise modification can be. Is it clear?
Instead of
If I try
listed,
to do any modification over the entire list,
இப்போ அது
yes, sir.
லிஸ்ட் நெஸ்டட் டூப்புலா இல்லாம
Instead of list,
நெஸ்டட் லிஸ்டா இருந்தது அப்படின்னா கேன் வி கேரி அவுட் ஃபங்க்ஷன்ஸ் ஆன் த
if it's a
எலிமெண்ட்ஸ் ஆஃப்
list,
த
yeah,
நெஸ்டட் லிஸ்ட்?
yes, obviously, yes, obviously, you can do. It's not wrong because you can modify that, no? So you are asking whether if I put a list over here, that is instead of curly brackets, sorry, square round brackets, if this is going to be a list, is it
எஸ்
clear?
மேம்,
Am I correct? Am I correct?
அதுதான் மேம்.
You're asking whether if is it possible for me to take an entire? Yes, obviously you can do. That's not an issue. You can put a for loop, attend each and every element separately, and you can apply all the what is that? You can apply all the functions or methods with respect to that particular list. It's not wrong. It's correct. No issues with
அது
that.
how can we
Is it clear, sir?
access
Shall we
those
move on?
nested list, மேம்?
How can we access that entire list? That's
இல்ல
an element of the
என்டையர் லிஸ்ட்
list,
இல்ல மேம்,
sir. For
அந்த உள்ள
example,
இருக்கிற நெஸ்டட் லிஸ்ட்டை எப்படி
I'll show
அக்சஸ்
it to you.
பண்றதுன்னு
I'll show.
while we are checking out any function or method.
That is what I'm saying. If T, for example, you're saying, I'll say L1 is the one sec. L1 is equal to, okay. So you're saying L1 is equal to 1 comma 2 comma 3. Okay, this is one list. Another one is 3 comma 4 comma 5. Okay. So now if I want to access this list, in list, can you tell me what value will I take first for I in L1? The first list 1 comma 2 comma 3. So now I is a list, okay, which has been assigned to the list is 1 comma 2 comma 3. So now using I can do all the process. Am I clear? Shall I work it out later and show you? Because since
Okay,
that's
ma'am.
not
Okay.
a part of this tuple study, after finishing the class, shall I work it out and show?
Sure, ma'am.
Is it clear? So there are two elements in this list. So when I want to pick the first element, so I will take the first element, that is the entire list. So now using I can access the 1 comma
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
1 comma 2 comma 3 list. So now I can using the name I. Okay, using the name I is for this particular
Okay.
list. I can do all the process. Hope it's clear. Yeah. So I hope this point is understandable. Tuples are immutable. Though tuples are immutable, if you have mutable elements within the tuple, it is possible to pick up that particular element and modify the element within that element. Okay, you cannot modify the entire element, but the element inside that element can be modified. Okay, hope this is clear. So now same thing what we discussed with respect to list, all those operators are applicable for tuples also. Okay, that is slicing, concatenation, repetition, membership, as well as identity. So we will see one by one. So we discussed about slicing previously in our previous class. So same answer is for this too. If you want to access only a range of elements from a given tuple, then you can go for the concept of slicing. So here if you see, what was the tuple I took? Okay, T3. I had a tuple called as T3, so I'll take a tuple T4. Okay, so tuple T4 2 comma 3.24 comma hello. So we know what is the meaning of this indexing. So indexing has three components inside it: start, end, and step. Okay, so if I put colon minus 1, what will happen? If I put colon minus 1, what will happen? What will be the address?
Reverse order.
All this we did with respect to list. The same step. Yeah, just reverse. Okay, so I gave it for T2, so it came as 45. Okay, so I have to give it for T4, colon colon minus 1, it will give me hello comma 3.24 comma 2. Okay, so if I want to print only 2 and 3.24, so I can put the indexing in this way. So 3 4 of 0 colon 4. So slicing, if I want to pick up a range of elements alone from a given tuple, I can go ahead with the process of slicing. Slicing operator works with tuple also. It works with list as well as it works with tuple also. Okay, so tuple slicing is possible. Okay, is it? Hope this is clear. So now I will move on with the second operator, that is concatenation plus. So plus, how it works with respect to your list, it works in the same way for tuple. That is, if I want to concatenate, that is combine the elements of one tuple with another tuple, I can do it with the help of this plus operator. So you can have a question that I can combine only two. Now you can use so many addition operation, and you can also perform combining of, for example, here if you see, there are three, I have created three tuples, T1, T2 and T3. Okay, T1, T2 and T3. So what I'm doing over here, I'm combining T1 plus T2 plus T3 and I'm storing into T4. So if I try to print T4, combining would have taken place. So first elements of T1, then elements of T2, okay, then elements of T3. So all these three will be combined and it will be pushed into T4. So if I want to combine the elements of, okay, of one or two tuples together, then obviously I can go for this plus operator. So this is for concatenation. So now tuple repetition, what we applied with respect to list, the same thing can be applied with respect to your tuple repetition. Okay, so if I want to multiply the elements, then I can do it with respect to this asterisk operator. So initially I had, for example, in this case, T4 multiplied by 2. If I put, so what happened? T4 already had values 2 comma 3.24 comma hello. So now again it has been multiplied by 2. So twice the same set of elements will be happening inside your T4. Okay, so this is multiplying. Okay, so next that we have to see is tuple in and is operator. So what was applicable with respect to list, the same stuff is applicable here too. So we can, for example, I want to find out whether 2 in T4, it will give me an answer true, because 2 is an element which is present inside your T4. Okay, similarly for a for loop also I can use it. So for I in, what is my tuple T4, so if I put like this and if I say print I, okay, it will actually print all the elements of my tuple. 2 3.24 hello, it is there, it will print all the elements in T4. Okay, so now then is your is operator, control L I will put, your is operator is what we did with respect to list. Okay, so for example, I'm creating two list, T1 is equal to 2 tuples I'm creating 1 comma 2 comma 3, and I'm yesterday itself we call separate objects. When I say they are created as separate objects, it actually means they are being located different memory locations. Okay, so is operator can also be used with respect to your tuples. Okay, so all these are the operators that are supported by your tuple. So next we will move on with tuple built-in function. So tuple built-in function, whatever built-in function we saw with respect to your list, all those four built-in function are applicable for tuple also. To start with, for example, I said you have a tuple called as T1. So len of T1 will be equal to 3. Okay, so max of T1 will also be equal to 3. Min of T1 will be work of itself. Min finds the smallest element in the list and max finds the maximum element in the list, and len will find out the number of elements in that tuple. Okay, so Clear? So the same functions, built-in functions that we used with respect to list is applicable for tuple also. All built-in functions are supported over here. So now we have to move on with methods. Okay. So when I speak about tuple built-in methods, there are only two built-in methods that are supported by tuple. So now we discussed in our yesterday's class, we discussed a wide varieties of methods which came into your list. So what brings up the biggest difference of the count of these methods in tuple and list is, we know tuples are immutable. So when I say immutable, this collection is created, okay, so that it is a read-only collection or a read-only data structure. Okay, so tuple was created in that sense. So whenever a user in his application wants to create a collection or a data structure which should not be modified later, okay, which should not be modified later, so this is kept in his mind. Now obviously, okay, tuples can be used for that purpose. Okay, so when I say tuples are immutable, it actually means you cannot do many manipulations over your tuple. So manipulations like, you cannot modify. Modify implies, for example, initially I have 3 elements in my tuple. So I'm putting a tuple like this. So here if you say T2 is equal to 1, 2, 3, can I add more elements to this tuple? Is it possible for me to add more elements to this tuple? When I say immutable, it actually means not only modifying implies not only changing an element value means modifying, adding a new element, deleting an existing element, everything comes under modification. So when I say you cannot modify, it actually means you cannot add new elements, you cannot delete new elements, you cannot delete existing elements, and at the same time you cannot change. So add, delete, change, all these kind of manipulations is not at all applicable over your tuple. Okay, so in our list we discussed about 3 methods which was for the purpose of adding elements. What were the 3 methods? What are those 3 methods that we discussed for adding elements? 3 methods for adding elements into a list.
Append,
We learned
extend, and
about append,
insert.
yeah, append, extend, and
Extend and
insert were the
insert.
3 methods. So all these 3 methods will actually add elements into your existing list, so which is not possible. So adding elements methods are not applicable for tuple. Similarly, we learned about 2 methods which does the work of removing elements. Okay, removing elements, what were they in list? 2 methods which were being used for removing.
Pop and reverse.
3 methods I can say.
Pop.
Three
Pop method.
methods: pop,
Remove.
yeah, clear and remove. Pop, clear, and remove. Pop will actually remove the last element. Remove will actually remove the specified element. Okay, and clear will actually remove all the elements. So all these 3 you cannot do the delete operation over here, so that is not applicable with respect to, again, those steps are not applicable with respect to your tuple. Similarly, sort. Okay, sort is a method that we did with respect to list. Sort actually changes the position of the elements. Okay, so changing of the position actually means you're changing the element of a specific position. So that is also coming under modification. So dot sort method is also not applicable. Similarly, reverse, dot reverse is not also applicable for your tuple, because all these are changing the positions. Your reverse and sort will actually change. Okay, so all these were the methods that we discussed with respect to list. These methods are not applicable for your tuple. So the left out methods will be count and index. So these are the 2 methods. These are the only 2 methods that are being supported by a tuple. So these are the 2 built-in methods for tuple. So we know what is the purpose of count. So count has been used for what purpose? Count will actually return the number of times a specified value occurs in a tuple. So here if you see, T2 is having 1, 2, 3. So if I put T2 dot count of 3, it will return 1, because 1 is occurring, 3 is occurring only once in your tuple, so it will return 1. In the similar way, if I want to know the index of 3, so T2 dot index of 3. So what is the index of 3? It will be 2. So 2 will be the answer for this case. So these are the 2 methods which which are being supported by your tuple data structure. Okay, so the point I'm insisting over here, why there are more, why it is not, why tuple is not supporting the methods that we discussed with respect to list is, since tuples are immutable, adding, deleting, changing is not at all possible. Hence, those methods are not supported for tuple. Only count and index are supported by tuple. Okay. So now the other things that you have to know with respect to tuple is where to use tuple. You have to know where we can use these tuples. Okay. So tuples can be used in two kinds of scenarios. So one I've already insisted. If I want to maintain a collection which should not be modified after that within my application, then I can go use this tuple as a sequence creation. So I can use this tuple to represent that particular sequence, okay, a read-only sequence. And second place where tuples are generally used is they can be used to simulate a dictionary without keys. Okay, for example, this is a dictionary without keys. So you are having a tuple, okay. This is actually a list. This is a list of nested tuples. Okay, so here inside this list, you have a tuple which is having three values: 101 Sorna 22, 102 Priya 28, 103 Neja 30. So since tuples are immutable, these values can never be changed. These values can never be changed. Okay. So if I refer 22 in this case, okay, the corresponding values of if I refer 101, the corresponding values, other values with respect to 101 will be Sorna and 22. So this is a kind of dictionary. There is a index, okay, then there is no key value over here. A particular value can be treated as a key value, okay, and the results can be associated to that key value. So a simulation of dictionary without keys can be done with the help of tuples. Okay, so these are the places where you can actually use tuples within your application. So this is just a difference. These are the differences that can be quoted between list and tuple. So those differences are very simple. If you go through it, it is understandable. So these points are simple. We use square bracket, we use round brackets. These are very silly differences. List is mutable, tuple is immutable. List as variable length actually means you can add elements into it. Since you cannot add elements into it, list where tuple will be of fixed length. Okay, so the same thing, more functionality is there with respect to list, less functionality. We had count and index only with respect to tuple, so less functionality. Okay, the biggest other difference is this one: the lists are less memory efficient. Since we can do manipulations like addition, deletion and change over your list, the memory efficiency of a list becomes less, but the memory efficiency of tuple will be better since they are immutable. You won't do these kind of manipulations. So maintaining the memory in an efficient way, it will be easy when you compare it with tuple, when you compare it with list. Okay, so these are the major differences that we can say that exist between list and tuple. So major difference that you have to keep in mind now: list are mutable, these are immutable. List has more functionality, tuple has less functionality, and list is less memory efficient, tuple are better memory, has a better memory efficiency. Okay, so these points you have to keep in mind. So now we will move on with the process of problem solving. So write a Python program to convert a given tuple of positive integers into an integer. So the question is understandable, I think. You are being asked to write a program to convert a given tuple of positive integers. A tuple is containing a set of homogeneous items of data type integer. Now what I have to do is I have to convert that into an single integer. So things goes like this. Let me explain it with the help of a notepad. So now what is the meaning over here is you are been having a tuple. Okay. So my tuple is looking like this: 4, 5, 8. So 4 is an integer, 5 is an integer, 8 is an integer. So consider that this is my input. Okay. If I am getting this input from keyboard, how would I have got it? If I'm getting this input from keyboard, how would I have got it? Keyboard landi input vaanganona, what will be the form of this 458? Through keyboard, when I get this input 458, it will be treated as what? As a, what will be the data type of it? What will be the data
Integer.
type?
String.
Input function. What will be the data type of? String. That's it. String will be the data type. Okay, so when I get 458 from keyboard, it will be a string. After getting it as a string, I have to convert that as a tuple. So this is my input process. Okay, so what will be my output? I need 458 as answer. So this is an integer. Hope it's clear. When I get the value from keyboard, it will be got as a string. Then I have to convert that into a tuple 4, 5, 8. Now what I have to do finally, I have to convert that into an integer 458. So how do I perform this process? So any suggestion for the logic? So let me bring out some mathematics that we know previously. So we know this place is actually called as the 1 unit, 10th unit and 100th unit. In mathematics, we used to say these terms: 1th, 10th and 100th. Okay. So if I multiply 8 by 1, okay. If I multiply 8 by 1 and then if I multiply 5 by 10 and then if I multiply 4 by 100, okay, and if I perform the summation of these three numbers, these three resultant values, what do I get? Hope it's clear. You get 458. Okay. So I have these numbers separately in my tuple. I have these numbers separately in my tuple. So I can take each and every number. Okay. I can take each and every number starting from the last because I don't know how many numbers are there. Okay. For example, 458 na, it is starting from 8 multiplied by 1, 5 multiplied by 10 and 4 multiplied by 100. For example, if my number is 1458, so what would have happened? 1, 4, 5, 8. Here you will be having a 1. So that implies I have to do another addition plus 1 multiplied by 1000. Okay. So I know after 100,000th unit will come, then 10,000 and it goes on. Okay. So I don't know where it will end, but I will start from 1. Okay. I will start from 1 and I will move on. So obviously my last number should be multiplied by 1. Then the next number should be multiplied by 10. This should be multiplied by 100 and this goes on. Okay. So if you see, the same process is repeated again and again. Okay. So this multiplication, this is multiplication. The same multiplication process. I will take each and every element and first element will be multiplied by 1. Second element will be from the last I'm saying. From the last, the first element will be multiplied by 1. Second element will be multiplied by 10. Third element will be multiplied by 100. Fourth element will be multiplied by 1000. So that after multiplying, I have to sum up. Okay. So I have to find out the sum. So initially what I will do, I will find out, I will write it in a better way. So I will find out this to be sum. Okay. Then what I will do, I will initialize my sum value to 0. Clear. So this summation has been tracked through this variable called as sum. So after this, what I will do, sum is equal to existing sum plus 5 into 10. Now again, sum will be equal to existing sum plus 4 into 100. And then sum is equal to existing sum plus 1 into 100. Okay. So 8, 5, 4, 1 are my numbers that I get from my tuple. Okay. So this, if I have, how can I refer this 8, 5, 4 and 1 of my tuple? 8, 5, 4, 1 are what of my tuple? I am just bringing out a generalized form over here. I'm trying to bring out a generalized form. So every time I find out a multiplication factor, then I have to add it. So that summation, for that summation purpose, summation is being generalized. Initially my sum value is 0. Okay. So then what I do, I take my last element in my tuple and I multiply that by 1. Okay. Then what I do, my sum changes. Now again I have to do the same process. Still I have elements in my tuple. I will take 5 and I will multiply 5 by 10. So I need a variable to track 8, 5, 4 and 1. And I also need a variable to track this, because when for the first round, okay, for the first element, this value was 1. Then it became 10. Then it became 100. Then it is becoming 10,000. After that, still there are elements, it will become 10,000. This goes on. Okay. So I need a variable to keep track of these values. Okay. So what I will do is I will initialize the value of n to be 1. Okay. So this will be n. So after one summation, what I will do, I will multiply n by 10. So after doing each step, what I'm doing, I'm multiplying n by 10. So this becomes n. So இப்போ இந்த இடத்துல n போட்டனா என்ன value வரும்? So n is equal to n into 10. So initially n was what? 1. So now 1 will be replaced over here. So n becomes 10. Okay. So 5 into 10. So again, after finishing up the sum up, I have to perform I have to change the value of n. N becomes n multiplied by 10. Hope it's clear. It's not 100. Already my value of n is what? 10. In this stage, n value is what? 10. So 10 multiplied by, again if I put 10, it will become 100. Okay. So now at this position, I need 100. So in this case, here it was 1. Okay. N was 1. Here n was 10. So now here n became 100. So now in the same way, I have to put this as n. Now n became n into 10. So 100 into 10, it will become 1000. Okay. So I need this variable n to keep track of those unit places, 1th, 10th, 100th, 1000th, it goes on. Okay. Like that. And similarly, okay, other than this, do I need any other variable? I need this 8. Okay. This is my actual element. I'm tracking from the tuple. So this should be taken from my for loop. Okay. So for I in range of, I have to start from my last element. Okay. Since I need to start from my last element, now we will work this out as a program. I will try to convert this into a program. So we will convert this into a program. Okay. So how I'm going to convert? With this we will finish. We're going to finish it. So first I need to get the input. Okay. So let me put T1 is equal to I am getting the input from keyboard. Okay. So enter the elements for the tuple. So I'm getting this. Okay. Now again what I have to do, I've got T1. So now again I will take T1. Now T1 will be in what form now? It will be a string. Okay. In this case it will be a string. So now I will again convert this T1 into a tuple. So tuple of T1. So now this will become a tuple. I can print T1, that will be a tuple. Okay, so for this particular program, since we have to track the element of the tuple from the last, I should know the length of my tuple. Okay, so how do I find out the length of my tuple? Using what function? Len function, len of T1. Okay, len function is used to calculate the len of T1. But the last element, for example, if there are 3 elements in my tuple, okay, what will be the index of my last element? If there are 3 elements in my tuple, what will be the index of my last element?
2.
2. Okay, 2. Okay, so since I want to track my last element with respect to len1, I'm putting -1 over here. Is it clear? I'm putting len1 will be length of T1 minus 1. So len1 is actually the index of my last element. Okay, index of my last element. So I'm starting from my last element. Okay, so for I in range of, I'm starting from my last element. Okay, so range of what I have to do, range of what is my last element? Len. Okay, so len1. Okay, so range len1 comma, what I have to put, I have to go till -1. Okay, because I have to go till my last element, that is 0. Clear? So for I in range of len1 comma -1, I have to put another -1 because I have to decrement it. Okay, since I am decrementing, step point will be -1. Okay, so now within the for loop, what I have to do? So before the for loop, I need to keep track of 2 variables. Sum should be equal to 0. Okay, because sum is my resultant integer. Sum is my resultant integer. Sum is equal to 0 and n will be initialized to 1. So n will be used to track the units. Okay, units of the digits. Okay, and sum is actually for what purpose? Sum is going to give you get the integer. That is your out. Do first. So len1 implies what? The index of my last element. I'm taking the index of my last element. So what I have to do? Sum is equal to sum plus, what is my tuple? T2 is, sorry, T1 of len1 gets my last element. Okay, so T1 of len1 gets my last element. Okay, T1 of len1 gets my last element. So now this should be multiplied with what? N. So initial value of n is what? 1. So now I have to change the value of n when I'm going to deal with the next digit. So n should become n multiplied by 10. So n will become n is equal to n multiplied by 10. Okay, so now what I have to do? That's it. I will move on to the next element.
T1 of
Okay, n
I,
value has
ma'am.
been changed, some value takes place, and finally, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. I have to put it as I. I is what we are tracking. Okay, so initial len1 value will be assigned to I. Okay, so T1 of I it is. So n is equal to n multiplied by 10. Okay, so now I think we have completed. What is the result I want? I want to print sum. Sum is my output. So after finishing my for loop, I will print sum. So control yes. Okay, so I will save this. One sec. Sam.py. I have saved. So now if I run module, I couldn't see. One sec. Press control well. So enter the elements for the tuple. So I'm giving the elements as 458. So if I give 458, it will be taken as a string. Okay, so I have left t1 of I multiplied for plus int and str. So t1 of I. So can you guess where I went wrong? Unsupported operands plus
Then it should be
for
considered
int
no
and
recognize that.
string. Yeah, once again, yeah. Yes. So now, if you understand this print, okay. So this is the point I have left out over here. If you see the elements of your tuple, the elements of the tuple are what?
String.
String. Okay. The elements of the tuple are string. Okay. I didn't convert them into integer. So what should I do now over here? I have to put int of t1 of I. So t1 of I is actually a string. So if I put int of t1 of I, string is getting converted into int, then it will proceed with the multiplication. So control S, function fi. So now if I give 458, so what is my output? I gave the input as a string. It was converted into a tuple. And again, I have converted that to an integer, which is 458. Okay, so hope this is understandable. So similar to this, I have another program in your write a program to reverse a tuple and print the result. Okay, so this is very simple. So how do I reverse a tuple actually? We don't have a method directly, but there are some built-in function. There is a built-in function called as reversed. So if you use reversed, okay, so here if you see this particular example, t1 is a tuple. Okay, so reversed is a built-in function which can be applied over a tuple, and the resultant can be stored inside this y. Okay, so now the original t1 will not be disturbed. Original tuple will not be disturbed. Reverse function will be applied and the reverse result would have got, and y will be a pointer pointing to that result. So now what I am doing, I am applying this tuple function to y so that this new tuple t2 is being generated, which is the reverse of your original t2. So if I want to apply some built-in methods over my tuple other than len, max, min, and tuple, you have methods like reversed. You have if I want to do the sorting process also, you have a method called as sorted. Okay, all these methods will actually does not disturb the original sequence. இப்போ reversed of t1 நான் கொடுத்தேன்னா ஒரிஜினல் சீக்வன்ஸை டிஸ்டர்பே பண்ணாது. ஒரிஜினல் சீக்வன்ஸ் அப்படியே தான் இருக்கும். ஓகே, ஆனா இந்த சீக்வன்ஸ்ல இருக்கிற வேல்யூஸ் எடுத்து ரிவர்ஸ் ஃபங்க்ஷன் அப்ளை பண்ணி ரிவர்ஸ் ரிசல்ட்டை கண்டுபிடிச்சு ஒரு பாயிண்டரை பாயிண்ட் பண்ண வச்சிரும். ஓகே, ஸோ அந்த பாயிண்டரை நீங்க என்ன வேணாலும் கன்வெர்ட் பண்ணிக்கலாம். ஒரு டியூப்ல கன்வெர்ட் பண்ணிக்கலாம், ஒரு லிஸ்ட்டை கன்வெர்ட் பண்ணிக்கலாம். தட் இஸ் our own wish. Is it clear? So we have, you can explore these kind of functions. These kind of functions will be applied over the original sequence, but the original sequence will not be disturbed. Similar to reversed, you have sorted also, sorted. sortedன்றத லிஸ்ட்டுக்கும் அப்ளை பண்ணலாம், டியூபிளுக்கும் அப்ளை பண்ணலாம். ஓகே, ஸோ ரெண்டுமே ஆக்சுவலா என்ன பண்ணும், ஒரிஜினல் லிஸ்ட்டையும் ஒரிஜினல் டியூபிளையும் டிஸ்டர்ப் பண்ணாது. புதுசா ஒரு லிஸ்ட்டையும் டியூபிளையும் கிரியேட் பண்ணும். Hope this is clear. Okay, so with this I finish up today's session. If you want to learn more stuff related to this tuple, go to InfoTiki portal and try to work out these assignments and quizzes. Okay, it will be helpful for you, and thank you. So if you have any doubts, you can ask me, or we can proceed. You can proceed to your laboratory session. Thank you.
Ma'am?
மேம் அந்த chat boxல போட்டுருக்கேன் t1 அந்த ஸ்லைசிங் ஆபரேட்டர் வச்சு நம்ம பண்ணிக்கலாம். எதுக்கு ரிவர்ஸ் ஆபரேஷன் பண்ணுவீங்க?
One sec. I didn't see
இல்ல
the
அது
chat
ஒர்க்
box.
ஆகுது. ட்ரை பண்ணி பார்த்தேன். ஒர்க் ஆகுது அந்த t1.
Which one?
ட்ரை t1 அந்த ஸ்லைசிங் ஆபரேட்டர் வச்சு நம்ம ரிவர்ஸ் பண்ணிடலாமா?
Yeah, and Venkatesh is only speaking. No, I'm checking where it is. What you applied?
இல்ல மேம் அந்த ஸ்லைசிங் ஆபரேட்டர் டியூபிள் பண்ணிட்டு ஸ்லைசிங் ஆபரேட்டர் போட்டா கரெக்ட்டா வருது. நான் ரிவர்ஸ் கமாண்ட்
இல்ல நீங்க எங்க क्वेश्चन போட்டுருக்கீங்கன்னு கேட்டேன்.
இல்ல क्वेश्चन இல்ல, அது ஆன்சர் மட்டும் தான் போட்டுருக்கேன் நான் ஆக்சுவலா.
அதான் எனக்கு அதான் என்ன கொஸ்டின் சொல்லுங்க, திருப்பி போடுங்க.
இல்ல அந்த
அது மட்டும்
ரிவர்ஸ்
சாட்ல
சொன்னீங்க இல்லையா?
மேம் அவர்
ரிவர்ஸ்க்கு
கோலன் கோலன்
he
மைனஸ்
put
1
as
போட்டார் மேம்.
P1 of colon -1
ஆமா
போட்டிருக்காரு மேம்.
ரிவர்ஸ் ஆகுமே.
ரிவர்ஸ் அது அப்புறம் ஏன் நான்
It will
ரிவர்ஸ்
reverse.
கமெண்ட் போன்னு கேட்டேன். ஏன் நம்ம
கோலன் கோலன். ஓ யூ ஆர் ஆஸ்கிங் ஃபார் தட்.
yes.
ஓகே ஓகே. இல்ல எனக்கு கோலன் கோலன் -1 will actually
Slicing operator
reverse the
சொன்னீங்க,
list and
அதனால.
display. Reverse the listனா லிஸ்ட் ஒரிஜினலா லிஸ்ட ரிவர்ஸ் பண்ணாது. ரிவர்ஸ்
Okay.
வேல்யூ என்னன்னு காட்டும். The list original list will not be affected. When we apply that function, அதாவது when we work it out with slicing, okay, it will not affect the original list. It will show this is the reverse result. புரியுதா? புரியுதா வெங்கடேஷ்? இப்போ if a tuple is having 1, 2, 3, if I apply the slicing operator, slice of colon 3 is the reverse of this particular tuple. Tuple will not get reversed.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Why you cannot reverse the tuple na? Because tuples are immutable. Tuple வந்து immutable. Colon slicing operator வந்து ஒரு ரிசல்ட்டை ஷோ பண்ண தான் செய்யுமே தவிர்த்து it cannot modify the existing original list.
Okay.
colon -1 minus just print க்கு யூஸ் பண்ணிக்கலாம், print பண்ணி பார்க்கலாம்.
tuple-குள்ள நம்ம
Also do the same stuff.
going for this. Okay. சரி.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other doubts? Yeah. Thank you, Venkatesh.
Ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Ma'am,